Good morning. Happy Monday morning to everybody. Hope you all had a wonderful weekend. My name is Darla Price. For those that don't know me, I'm the Executive Director for the Northumberland Manufacturers Association. We are a small but mighty industry association located out here in Northumberland County, and very proud to have organizations and businesses, partners such as Baker Tilly. I've actually had the privilege of working with multiple representatives at Baker Tilly, whether it's the local guy here in town in Coburg to the executive across Ontario to today, where we get the ability to learn from those across the world. And I think that's what kind of makes Baker Tilly different, unique, is the ability to, of course, do all the wonderful financial guru stuff that they do, but the ability to be advised from all over the world really makes them a great asset, especially to our type of industry in manufacturing. So to further ado, I would like to introduce Sean Grant Young of Baker Tilly, who will explain the session and get us started today. Thanks for the opportunity, Sean.
No, thank you, Darla. We really appreciate the opportunity to showcase our reach, our skill set, our expertise. To Darla's point, we have 700 offices across 143 countries. There's 43,000 people out there that are willing to help. And today we're highlighting our folks in Australia, our folks supporting Japan, and our folks in China. And because of the time zone difference, these are recorded pieces. We were able to sort of flip the script and do some early morning, late night sessions for you, where we thank you to the events team at Baker Tilly for supporting that as well, because it was, as I said, a few late nights or later nights than normal for most. And we again just appreciate the opportunity to present to you today. We will take any questions. Please put them in the Q&A or in the chat. We'll save those, and if there are any that aren't answered in the Q&A session, the mini Q&A sessions we did during the presentations, then we will ensure that we fire them off to the right people and get answers back to you. So without further ado, we've got the presentation for you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar today. This is the first portion of the Doing Business in Asia Pacific. We're going to start with our colleagues at Pitcher Partners in Australia. They're going to speak to us about doing business in Australia.
Thank you, Sean. I really appreciate the opportunity to work with Baker Tilly in Canada on this. And Pitcher Partners is the Australian member firm of Baker Tilly International. And I'm joined today by my colleague Jyotika Rangal. My name is Dragan Misic, and I'm one of the tax partners here. And we'll be talking through some of the issues that inbound investors face in coming into Australia.
Thank you, Dragan. We'll have our disclaimer there. All of this is very informational. So thank you again for joining us. And if you're looking to break into the Asia Pacific market, Australia is a fantastic place to start. The economy is strong and stable. We've got a GDP of over $1.7 trillion Australian dollars. And it's really well connected globally, particularly with Canada. There is a free trade agreement that Australia has with Canada. And the government here is really leaning into innovation and advanced manufacturing, which makes it a really great environment for forward-thinking and advanced manufacturing businesses. Setting up shop, as we like to say in Australia, is fairly straightforward. It ranks as one of the top countries for ease of doing business in Australia. We've got very stable infrastructure, really reliable, high-speed internet via our national broadband network, really stable utilities, dependable power, and also our logistics are quite smooth. We've got efficient ports, airports, and really consistent supply chains. When it comes to legal certainty, Australia is well regulated. Enforcement is smart, it's secure. We're very well connected for growth in this region. So it makes Australia a really smart choice for international investment, and not just because of our location. It's really a very diverse economy as well. We've got sectors in mining, manufacturing, technology and agriculture. And the government is really looking for growth in a lot of those sectors. We've got a $15 billion National Reconstruction Fund that aims to boost some of these key industries, particularly in industries such as clean energy and advanced manufacturing. On top of that, Australia has a really stable political system. We had a federal election earlier this year and our Labor government was returned with a very strong majority. So there will be quite a lot of stability and consistency with our government for the next several years. We also have a really straightforward process, I would say, for foreign investors. We do have a Foreign Investments Review Board that has guidelines and regulations around foreign investment into Australia. And certainly for where there's real property involved in foreign investments. But given the relationship Canada and Australia has, and through our free trade agreement, there's a lot of exceptions and also generous thresholds available in that review process.
Absolutely. And I think one of the takeaways is the similarity between the two different countries, even though we're an ocean apart. Canada and Australia in some ways are very similar, both in terms of history, being tied through the Commonwealth of Nations, but also in terms of the legal system. We have very similar legal systems and similar federations or confederations in your case that have allocation of powers to different levels of government. And I think that's one of the main takeaways when we do have investors from Canada coming through, is the fact that it already feels familiar. And I think, as I say, in the real estate game, location, Australia is so close to key Asian markets. And I think that's really one of the main attractions for investors coming here, is how close we are to Southeast Asia in particular, and emerging markets in Southeast Asia, but also more generally in India as well, and the Indian subcontinent.
Yeah, absolutely. And just following on that, the closeness of the relationship with Canada, the Australian business culture is quite similar, I would think, and our culture is quite direct and relationship driven. Trust and strong local partnerships are quite key for success in Australia, and particularly for businesses. Things like punctuality is highly valued. Building capability through consistent, respectful engagement goes a long way with supply chains. For companies looking to break into the Australian market, there's various different pathways, including a subsidiary, working with local agents, forming joint ventures, or pursuing a target in Australia to acquire. Each of these options obviously have different advantages depending on the business's goals and so forth, but certainly they all benefit from Australia's really open and collaborative approach to doing business here.
Absolutely. I think one of the things which is similar to Canadian culture is we are seen to be a little bit laid back, not in terms of doing business, but in terms of just culture. Australia does have a laid back culture, just partly because of the abundance of beaches and national parks, so that, you know, if you are looking to send people here, it is a very much attractive location for people to want to come to work and live here. And we do see a lot of inquiries, you know, obviously, because it is one of the main draw cards for Australia, the fact that we do have so much sunshine. It does ultimately impact on the culture here.
Yeah, absolutely. So we may do a little bit more of a deep dive into some of the structures when setting up a business in Australia. And as we mentioned, there's a few different options available, including subsidiaries, branches, joint ventures, and they all offer different levels of control and flexibility. All of our companies are registered with our Australian Securities and Investments Commission, or as we call them, I call it ASIC. And there's requirements to comply with our Corporations Act. And that is obviously ensures transparency, accountability, and that also governs directors' duties and roles and responsibilities. We have really strong intellectual property protection, and again, backed by enforcement mechanisms designed to give Australian businesses confidence in safeguarding their innovations. There are also obviously other rules and regulations businesses adhere to in Australia, and there's environmental, workplace and consumer laws that apply in the majority of sectors. In terms of practicality, most businesses would generally set up as a corporate entity, a subsidiary of the Canadian parent. But there are obviously other options as well. Some big businesses would choose to register their foreign entity directly in Australia as a branch. Both options are viable, and from an administrative and legal perspective, there's very little difference. Oftentimes, a corporate entity is a lot better understood by consumers and also supply chains. So that is a very common path chosen by businesses looking to enter the Australian market. And certainly if you are a business that deals with government agencies such as schools or hospitals, companies are much more preferred purely because of the procurement systems that governments have.
Absolutely. I think the speed of being able to incorporate is one of the main benefits of using a company. And we do have two types of companies in Australia. One's called a limited company, which is generally public companies that have a wide and a disparate shareholding. And that's typically listed companies, but we would typically see subsidiaries of offshore companies setting up what we call a PTY limited company, which is a proprietary limited company. And that can be set up, within half an hour or so with the appropriate paperwork with ASIC. Everything's done electronically. The other common structure that a lot of foreigners do encounter in Australia, which is a bit unusual and a bit different to what you may have experienced in other jurisdictions, is the widespread use of trusts, in particular for holding of land in particular and real estate. Because Australia doesn't have a flow-through limited partnership structure, trusts have been adopted as the widespread vehicle for use to deliver fiscally transparent treatment. And that's one of the things that foreign investors in particular find a little bit different to what they see in other countries. We have particular types of trusts which can deliver tax beneficial outcomes for foreign investors looking to invest in particular asset classes, such as real estate and mining assets. And one of those is called a managed investment trust. And in particular, we see a lot of Canadian institutional funds using those for their passive holdings in Australia. But for more active investments, as Jodica said, companies are the preferred choice. We also do have partnerships, which is similar to what you would have, but here in Australia, partnerships have unlimited liability, so they're not generally used as a business structure, except in regulated industries such as professional services, where the law does require partnerships to be used for structuring particular types of professional services. We do have some recent innovations through what we call corporate collective investment vehicle, but again, that's a typically similar structure to what you may have encountered in other jurisdictions. It is a corporate, but it is a flow through. So it's very similar to the attribution managed investment trusts, which we just touched on, which is similar to the managed investment trust. It's essentially a corporate flow through, but it's not designed to house active businesses, but more passive holdings in real estate and other passive investments. One of the key features, and it's not too dissimilar to the Canadian system, is we do have quite a few pension funds, which we call in Australia superannuation funds. And that's a feature as a result of our requirement for employers to contribute 12% of gross salaries and wages that they paid to their employees into a compliant superannuation fund. And that's resulted in quite substantial accumulation in those funds, which then is able to be deployed into a number of other areas. However, one of the things, obviously, as an employer looking to set up here is making sure you're on top of those superannuation obligations, which need to be factored into your modelling for your employee remuneration. We do have a number of other passive investment vehicles which may be of interest if you are looking to make other investments, including early stage venture capital limited partnerships and venture capital limited partnerships. But again, they're more designed to be used by passive investors looking to make investments into Australian companies here rather than active business operations.
So we'll move on to some of the labour market considerations in Australia. So Dragan touched on superannuation, paying supply chains, paying employees and making sure there's superannuation factored in. So that leads us to the type of labour force we have. We've got a very high skilled and productive labour workforce in Australia, which is a major advantage, obviously, for businesses looking to scale. Labour costs are high, though, compared to some of the other Asian markets. But again, that is very much reflective of the expertise in the labour workforce, but also some shortages in certain sectors, particularly care industries and so forth. To address skill shortages, our country does have a very active migration policy, which helps businesses sponsor skilled workforces from other countries into Australia. Our employment is governed by the Fair Work Act, which ensures there's standards for both employees and employers and protections. And it's a very robust system, and it also has a very strong focus on workplace development and with programs like apprenticeships and industry helping to build future-ready talent in Australia.
Absolutely. And one of the consequences of having a well-protected workforce here is sort of the understanding that the differing needs of businesses as they're growing. And in particular, in Australia, there is quite a reliance on contractors as well as employees, and the tax treatment of those is quite different. And recent case law developments have been trying to highlight what is the difference between an employee and a contractor, because that does have consequences both from a legal perspective and a tax perspective. We also do have a number of taxes that are levied on payments to employees, in particular state-based payroll taxes, which key off that distinction, as well as superannuation obligations, which sometimes are impacted by that. One of the main costs of also doing business here is the state-based payroll taxes, which are levied by the states as opposed to the federal government, which levies federal taxes. And payroll taxes in particular are something that need to be modelled. They're in the range of about 5 to 6%, and they can encapsulate group companies. It's really important to understand what those rates are, and they are levied by the different states. So if you have operations in multiple states, you would be obliged to register and file in the different locations where your employees are located.
So we'll move on to some of the banking system in Australia. So our banking system is really built on the strength of 4 major banks: the Commonwealth Bank of Australia, Westpac, ANZ, and the National Australia Bank. All of those have very solid global presence as well and a strong record of compliance. The financial institutions, including these 4 major banks, but also other banks, operate under our AMLs, Anti-Money Laundering and Counter-Terrorism Funding Acts, and they do have quite stringent KYC processes and checks. Typically, it could take 2 to 3 months for a foreign company to open up a bank account in Australia, but there are options of continuing trading without a local bank account operating, including using trust accounts through accountants or using foreign bank accounts until such time as a local one is established. There are also transaction monitoring, as would be similar in other jurisdictions, including for transfers over $10,000. But regardless of all of those safeguards, the system is quite open. Foreign firms and capital is obviously very welcome in Australia, and once that process of setup is complete, the ongoing processes are quite straightforward. Our banking system is quite secure, very transparent, and easy to do business internationally as well.
Thanks, Jessica. We might just go back to some of the consequences of doing business here, including the tax rates. We do have a fairly favourable tax rate system. Depending on how large the company is, it is a little bit higher than some of the other similarly sized jurisdictions. So we've got a 30% maximum corporate tax rate and a 25% tax rate for essentially more passive investment and smaller companies. And that needs to be taken into account. We've also got a GST, which isn't dissimilar to Canada's GST, and that's levied on 10% of imported goods as well as goods and services supplied locally. One of the things which Australia does have, which is really important, is if you're looking to do R&D here, is we do have quite a substantive R&D tax incentive system, which can provide incentives in the form of refunds and tax offsets, which can reduce tax rates. Those rules are a little bit hard to navigate, so it's important that if you are looking to engage in those activities, that you engage with us and other advisors to make sure that you are properly registered and understand the parameters of what's allowable. We do have export market development grants, which can provide some level of government stimulus if you're looking to expand internationally as well as concessions around the timing of GST being payable on importation as well. So these are all things which are designed to incentivise doing business here. I think one of the main takeaways, which is a little bit different in terms of how Australia taxes, is we do have what we call an imputation regime, which is designed to ensure that any corporate taxes that are paid here are designed to be a final tax. So, for example, if a company has paid tax at the relevant rate of 25 or 30%, there's no further dividend withholding taxes that are paid, which is really different to most other countries where there might be a further dividend withholding tax. We also do have quite a favourable tax treaty with Canada that was negotiated in 2002, which does apply to unfranked dividends as well, which is essentially untaxed profits, which does cap withholding taxes to 15% in those situations. And we do have favourable treaty rates of 10% on interest and 10% on royalties. So they're fairly substantial discounts to what would otherwise apply under our domestic law, and do in some ways assist in companies modelling their tax liabilities if they're looking to expand into Australia.
And I think we're coming towards the sort of the end of our discussions, but one of the key areas that we wanted to also cover off is Australia's proactive approach to obviously high growth sectors and advanced manufacturing, renewable energy and agribusinesses. The government is really backing this momentum with, as I mentioned earlier, a $15 billion National Reconstruction Fund. It's really designed to accelerate development in those specific industries. There's also really strong support for collaboration with public-private partnerships and government procurement programs, helping businesses scale and innovate. One of the standout initiatives we wanted to mention as an example is Advanced Robotics for Manufacturing Hub, which is located in Brisbane. And that's just an example of Australian manufacturers becoming more competitive through robotics and AI, and it's the government's way to help drive cutting edge capabilities and boost productivity in some of those sectors.
And that's one of the key advantages of Australia. We have a really talented workforce that's highly educated. We've got 40 plus universities in Australia, which do generate quite a substantial and well-educated workforce. And the government has seized on the opportunities created post-COVID-19 to essentially shore up Australia's manufacturing capability and to encourage that through various incentives, including through the National Reconstruction Fund, where that potentially could invest alongside companies looking to invest here. But also, in some ways, the states do encourage larger companies to come here to set up operations, and in some instances give particular tax concessions. So these are all things that are trying to make Australia a more interesting destination for manufacturing, in particular for more advanced manufacturing. And Australia is also looking to expand its talent pool with manufacturing in other areas that are adjacent to that, following sort of more recent sort of announcements relating to the AUKUS treaty, which is designed to encourage more defence-related manufacturing here in Australia as well.
And finally, Australia is also taking a really proactive approach to sustainability and corporate responsibility with mandatory ESG disclosures. And earlier this year, mandatory climate-related reporting was also introduced as part of the business landscape. Mandatory climate reporting rules are really targeted at impacting larger businesses with over $500 million of Australian turnover. But the idea is that over time, more and more businesses will become part of that requirement, including smaller players that get caught up in value chains of larger businesses. So really, for businesses coming into Australia, having sustainability as part of their strategy is a good strategy to have, and eventually requirements will potentially make it mandatory for them to report on carbon measurements. Our Prime Minister only yesterday came out with targets for 2035, which are up to 70% of reductions in in carbon emissions. And all of that is working towards Australia's commitment to net zero by 2050.
And Australia in particular is blessed with the abundance of natural resources to help with renewables. In particular, we have a lot of sunshine, so we do have a lot of investment in renewables, including solar plants, but also wind and offshore wave power as well. So a lot of clean energy initiatives are being driven in part by foreign investment in Australia, and Australia is looking to ensure that that keeps going. So if you are looking to make those kinds of investments, Australia is definitely a place to come, and Australia is looking to export some of that clean green energy offshore, including through developments, including a large cable through to Southeast Asia being built at the moment. So there are definitely opportunities for any capabilities that might be adjacent to those areas being utilised in Australia. We might leave it there and ask if there are any questions of you, Sean, or any questions that might have popped up through the discussion that might be relevant to Canadian investors or Canadian companies looking to do business here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for that presentation. It was very thorough. We really hit the nail on the head and gave us a great understanding of where where Australia is and where their focus is, and how we might be 26 hours away, but we're very much same and similar. From a question perspective, thinking about the ability for Canadians to come to Australia and sort of assist in setting up shop, so to say. Is there limitations on the length of stay? Are there tax considerations in that? Visas, things like that? Because when a company sets up a new plant, down the road they're sending people. I think going across the ocean, they'd be more comfortable doing the same thing. But given just the distance between versus going back and forth to, say, the United States, is there anything that our members need to consider?
Absolutely. Well, we do have direct air routes from Vancouver, so not quite 26 hours, to Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane, which are about 14 hours, which do enable Canada and Australia to be connected with 5 or 6 daily flights, which does make it a little bit easy for Canadian companies to do business here with both Air Canada and Qantas operating daily air routes, which does help with the connectivity piece. But in terms of the visa piece, Australia does enable companies that are establishing operations here to sponsor particular employees that they feel are important to their operations. So in terms of visas, there are, and we're not visa experts, but there are visa categories that do enable companies to bring people onshore here to support their business operations through a particular sponsorship. And in particular, that is tied to the need for that particular employee to be located here. And that is something which has been a long-standing feature of Australia's immigration system. We do have, obviously, a very tight labour market here in Australia. We're nearly at full employment, so Australia does welcome immigration. One of the factors is obviously just the nature of the skill set that people are being brought in here. And if it is a skilled migrant that is looking to come here, then obviously that is a different consideration for the Australian government as opposed to an unskilled migrant. And so these are the things that any employer would want to look at and diligence ahead of sending people here. But in terms of taxation issues, we do have, as I mentioned, a comprehensive tax treaty with Canada that does regulate the double taxation or the potential for double taxation by preventing that. So there is an allocation through what we call tiebreakers to enable only one country to tax the relevant person, and that all needs to be factored in given that the length of stay that the particular employee or contractor is in Australia.
Perfect. And from a supply chain perspective, if you're currently receiving a lot of your materials from Asia or the Middle East as it stands, would there be a significant difference in timing? Would you suspect for those types of deliveries? Would there be lag because of your location, or does it actually possibly speed up the supply chain?
It possibly speeds it up. We're blessed with natural resources, so a lot of the materials that are essential to manufacturing are located here in Australia, and we tend to export more than we import in terms of raw materials in particular. But if we're talking about semi-finished goods, then obviously we do have a very robust port and rail infrastructure that does enable fairly swift sort of goods to be delivered to the relevant locations. We do have a new international airport being built in Sydney, which will be operating 24 hours in addition to 24-hour airports being located in Melbourne and in other cities, which do enable sensitive air freight to be delivered fairly quickly as well if you're looking to do high-tech manufacturing. The other thing is obviously the raw minerals include rare earth minerals. Australia is blessed with a lot of those. And so if you are looking to do more complex manufacturing, one of the things which Australia is looking to encourage is more that rare earth minerals processing to occur onshore as part of its energy and security policy. We also have a lot of natural gas and oil resources here, so we don't tend to import a lot of those types of raw materials into Australia because we do have a lot of our own oil and gas natural resources already located here.
Fantastic. Well, so that's all the questions we had for you today. Thank you again. This was again very informative, very powerful presentation for our members, and we will share this information, your information as well, with the members, and we hope that they look across the ocean instead of just across the road. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Sean.
Sean.
Good morning, everyone. This portion of the session will be of the Doing Business in Asia Pacific webinar. We'll focus on Japan. We have two speakers here from Australia and New Zealand who deal with Japan on a daily basis. I'd like to bring them onto the screen and they can introduce themselves.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Annette Zuma, a partner with Baker Tilly Staples Rodway in Auckland, New Zealand. I have been with Baker Tilly for 29 years and I established and commenced our Team Japan. We have approximately 7 or 8 native Japanese speakers and myself, and we act for a large number of Japanese corporates, listed, unlisted, and ultra high net worth individuals. We also assist some Kiwi, New Zealand companies that are expanding into Japan. I'm also a vice chair of the Japan New Zealand Business Council.
Okay, good morning, everybody. My name is Makiko from Pitcher Partners, Melbourne. I joined the Pitcher Partners early 2025, though I based in Melbourne nearly 30 years. And before that, I was working for another Japanese companies for 25 years. So my dealing is always with Japanese companies. And here at Pitcher Melbourne, I am dealing with, I'm in the corporate finance department, taking care of Japanese companies investing in Australia.
We've got a packed agenda today, so we'll start with an overview of Japan and its economy, and then we'll talk about why to invest in Japan, the macroeconomic, political, and cultural landscape, taxation incentives, then some of the legal, regulatory, and employment considerations. So as an overview, there are approximately 123 million people in Japan. It has a size of about 378,000 square kilometers, and the native language is Japanese. The currency, the key points, the time difference is significant between North America and Japan, and that's partially why this is this webinar is being done this way. And their currency is the yen, as you may or may not know. There are a lot of yen to the Canadian or US dollar, and it's one of those industries or the countries where you get a sticker shock when you see the price the first time, and then you realize that it's actually 145 times less. That key sectors include manufacturing, banking, insurance, telecommunications, transportation, and retail. Based on discussions with Annette and Makako, we determined, there are a few main reasons to invest in Japan. Firstly, being they are the 5th largest GDP in the world, so a very significant, very meaningful economy. They are the 2nd largest automotive manufacturer in the world, leader in that, obviously Toyota being the key one there. They also host the 3rd largest stock exchange by market capitalization in the world. So for situations where there's listings and there's debt or there's equity looking to be raised in a significant enough way, there is a very mature, very significant market locally. Significant foreign direct investment, over 21 billion US dollars in 2024. They are a world leader in advanced technology, as we know, and they have a very significant startup ecosystem in the Tokyo region. So a lot of very educated, very interesting, very driven entrepreneurs to match our Canadian needs and desires. Japan also has low corruption and a low unemployment rate, which are very important when searching for a stable and safe economy to invest in.
And it's also really interesting to note it was quite big world news when Warren Buffett a couple of years ago invested significant funds into Japan's large trading houses. And he has since invested more funds and sees that Japan has got very long-term stable possibilities. Just another interesting point in terms of the technology and startup capitals. Fukuoka, which is in southern Japan, is known as the startup capital in Japan. It's got a very young mayor and mayor of the city, and they are creating a lot of interest, and a lot of young tech startups actually go to Fukuoka, and there's some incentives, etc. So just some other places to bear in mind as well.
Fantastic. And I will turn it over completely to our presenters to talk about the macroeconomic, political, tax, and other landscape pieces.
Okay, is it okay, Anita-san, I start about economic conditions because yes, I'm coming from the financial background. So, Japan's GDP, explained by Sean, is the fifth largest in the world, and it's growing stable at around 1 to 2%. And inflation, we didn't have inflation for a long time, but from 2021 or 2, we certainly have, and having inflation, which is around 2%, which is the target level of Bank of Japan's. And then, as Sean explained, the unemployment rate is low at around 2.5, 2.6%. And if we talk about the key industries, that would be, as explained, like Toyota, so automobiles, electronics, precision machineries, pharmaceuticals, and now tourism, inbound tourism is a big businesses in Japan, and Japan is always innovation focused, and renewable energy is a large focus by Japanese government, Japanese businesses.
So a quick question about the culture and business practices from an outsider's view looking in. How is it different dealing with the Japanese market versus other markets that you've seen worldwide?
Okay. So I guess it is quite a unique culture, and there's a few key points that are really important. So number one is to be very polite. Japanese do not like confrontation. They are very polite, and they also are very precise. So you will find when you're dealing with Japanese clients that they will ask a lot of questions. And it is very important to be patient and respond to all the questions. Probably in Japanese, there's gaman and gambaru, meaning patience and always do your best. That's how my husband brought our boys up, and I think that really encompasses what you should do in Japan. Be polite, be patient, because there is going to be a lot of questions asked, but that can lead to really good long-term benefits. And I'm sure Okamoto-san has some other points to add to that.
Yes, I think Annette-san has covered almost everything, but one thing I would like to add is in Japan, business card is so important. It's quite beneficial, or it's very productive way because you introduce yourself and sometimes you forget whom you have met. And then if you have a business card, normally we write it down. Whom did you meet when? And some kind of topics you discussed with that person at the meeting in the back of the business card. So you could trigger yourself to remember about this person. And also, that is a kind of your business, how do you say, networking, as well as your database for your businesses. So business card is very important for, yeah, for our culture. And also, as Annette-san says, that it, we are very, Japanese are very polite. Also, it takes time for the decision making. And Japan tend to use more like a consensus building strategy. So we call it sometimes nemawashi. It's in a good way that everybody is happy. And once you make a decision, it moves quickly because everybody knows where they are at.
Yes. Yeah, great points. And what I often say to our Kiwi clients who are considering doing business in Japan or dealing with Japanese, we have in New Zealand, we call it a laid back attitude. So I say the Kiwi laid back attitude does not cut mustard in Japan. In Japan, laid back attitude is not looked upon greatly. Things need to be very precise. For example, if you have a meeting at 10 o'clock, you should actually arrive 10 minutes early. You should never be late. If you've been fortunate enough to go to Japan, you'll realize the bullet trains run like clockwork. They're never even a minute late. So punctualness is really important as well. I actually think having dealt with so many Japanese businesses over the years that a lot of Japanese business protocols is actually best business practice. Being polite, being on time. If you promise to do something, you should always meet that deadline. For example, a client said to me they were going to send something to me that day. It arrived at 11:59 p.m. So that shows that they kept that promise to do it on that day. So it's really crucial that when you say things to Japanese people that you follow up with your promises. Actually, you know, under promise but over deliver is very, very important. Otherwise, you will lose trust if you don't stick to what you said you were going to do. I think that is super crucial, as well as always responding in a timely manner is really important as well. So basically, super good business practice. It's probably known that Japan has some of the best service levels in the world. And so it is a high service level, high expectations. But if you are aware of that and stick to that, the rewards are also high.
That's fantastic. It really does sound like best practices we should all think about in our businesses.
Yes.
We'll move on to taxation and incentives, and I think the best part of this would really be to understand the special economic zones, any significant R&D programs, just anything that differs from the normal course business that Japan might bring to the table.
Yeah, so we can see that we've got a summary of the various taxes here. As a tax accountant here in New Zealand, we are well aware that taxes can change. So it's always important to make sure, number one, that you're getting up-to-date information and dealing with a reputable firm like Baker Tilly in Japan. The important things to note is that Canada and Japan do have a double tax agreement. which is very important because that helps minimize any double tax, etc. On the screen, we've got written the various types of taxes there. I guess one of the big things in Japan is that there's a lot of death duties and also gift duties, stamp duties, which are high. In terms of corporates doing business in Japan, the rates are reasonable. For individuals, the actual individual rates of tax are lower than, for example, in New Zealand. And it's very important to consider which part of Japan you are going to be doing business in, because the various different regions offer different incentives. So for example, I mentioned Fukuoka, the startup capital. They offer various incentives which can change, throughout the time. So important to check that you've got up-to-date information. Just another point to add, which is an incentive, is JETRO, which is the Japan External Trade Organization, and Baker Tilly Staples Woodway in New Zealand, we're actually the agents for JETRO. They do actually offer complimentary office space for approximately 3 months. So that's another option for businesses if you're expanding into Japan, to use those JETRO office spaces. Make sure that you get good tax advice, tax and legal advice. So it's quite a, fluid moving area.
Yes, if I could add to Annette-san, the Japan's it has also written in this um, presentation material, the corporate tax, income tax itself is 23.2%. But as she mentioned, Annette-san mentioned, there are various different taxes, and that is sometimes local based. And in addition to that, we have that, how do you say, uniform tax, which is GST or VAT, which is 10%. And doing the businesses, different regions, different prefectures are offering different tax incentive. That's why we have special economic zones based on national strategic special zones, which offers some regulatory easing or tax benefit. So that is really depend on the region. And if you know those rules, rules of the game, you may have more advantage or better start in doing the businesses in Japan.
Fantastic. That's excellent advice. So, from the legal and regulatory and employment framework, what's really would be great to hear about is the banking, financial markets, and capital sectors of Japan's business, and then also talking about the ability to hire foreign nationals and start the business with foreign nationals versus local Japanese business people.
Yes, I feel the Japanese financial market is quite open, so foreign companies are free to enter. And from banking point of view, bank account setup required registration document, but as long as you have a document ready or document prepared, somebody is helping you to set it up. You can set up account without any problem. And the fundraising in Japan, we have venture capital, and importantly, government-backed funds are available, and that can be available to the Japanese companies, Japanese startups, or foreign startups too. And in terms of the currency control, the Japanese yen is freely, convertible. It is a hard currency, and no restriction on remittance.
Fantastic. And to the employment piece, if companies are looking to set up their businesses in Japan, normally if I'm setting up a new facility in Canada, I'm going to bring some of my leadership with me to that new facility. Is it acceptable from both a cultural and legal perspective, if I want to set up a business in Japan, that I'm allowed to set up the company and then bring some of my business people to Japan, or do I need to start by hiring Japanese-based people?
I think you can definitely bring some people from Canada, and Japan has a declining population, so the government is actually making it easier for foreigners to come and work and live in Japan, particularly in certain industries and areas. I think also it is actually important to have a blend of both, for example, Canadian and Japanese working together to get the best result. And for the Canadians who do go over to Japan, one phrase I always use when I'm talking to clients about expanding globally is when in Rome, do as the Romans do. So go ni reba go ni shitagai is the Japanese phrase. So for Japanese doing business in New Zealand or vice versa, it's really important to understand and respect those cultural differences. And I do think the blend is actually the best way. If you went solely with Canadians in Japan, I think you would have, it wouldn't be as easy to succeed if you, as if you had Canadians plus Japanese, because Japanese, it is quite a homogeneous society and they do feel comfortable dealing with Japanese people. So I would definitely have both.
Yes, Japan has, as in the beginning, has a presentation that Japan has a low unemployment rate at this moment. However, Japan has Japanese people are highly trained, highly skilled people. So if there is a good match, um, with that Canadian boss, and some Japanese people have a reason to work for foreign companies, and they are loyal to the company, to the boss. So if you have a really good match, that would be a really strong base for the business to grow too.
That's excellent. So I want to thank you both for making the time today. This was a really informative session. I learned a lot, and I do appreciate both the view of people who have lived in and are also working with Japan. So thank you so much for this. We really appreciate it. We will share your information as needed with the groups, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Morning, and thank you for joining for our next portion of the presentation. We're going to discuss expanding your business internationally through China. We have Eric here from Baker Tilly in China to talk through his experience in international business.
Thank you, Son. First of all, thank you. And this is Eric from Baker Tilly, China. Thank you for having me today. So I would like to share some of the insights of the expanding business into China. So it will be in two parts. The first part will be doing business in China, and I talk something more about entering the Chinese market. So let's have a quick overview of China. So China is about 9.6 million kilometers, and it's about 1.4 billion people. And the capital is in Beijing, and we have much more key cities, as you may know, Shanghai, Shenzhen, Guangzhou, etc. So the key industry in China, you see, is manufacturing, and we also have very large consumer markets, and some of, as you know, we have rapid digital economy growth over the years, and over the past years, we have approximately 18 trillion GDP in China. So as you know, it's a key player in the global manufacturing role. So over the years, China has an openness approach on policy, as you know, the Belt and Road Initiative, and also is coming through some ongoing improvement in the foreign investment and environment to invite more company or other country to invest into China. So we also have some other advantages to make it more convenient to the overseas investors. So we situated in this central position in East Asia, and then we have very good global supply chain history. And also we have some very good infrastructure, you know, some high-speed train, port, and also some logistic network. So we do have some effects experienced from overseas policies. So taking an example, the US tariff policy, we do experience some effect on this. So it's impacting some machinery, furniture export. So raising costs and also affecting the market shares. And also for some multinational companies, they have to consider or to take action to reallocate part of the production capability. So let's have a quick look on the overall foreign investment into China. So in year 2024, we have roughly 59,000 new foreign invested companies set up in China. So roughly is about $116 billion invested in 2024. So accumulatively, up to 2024 is the roughly 1.2 million company already invested in China, and accumulatively is about $20 trillion into the Chinese market. So you can have a quick look on the exchange rate across Canadian dollar and US dollars versus Chinese yuan. So as you can see in the graph, 5-year graph is rather stable, though it's a bit fluctuate for some years, but overall is still remain stable. So it's look like it's good for investment to keep your profit, have a stable position when we're meeting back to your country. So we invest when considering investment in China. We do also have some challenges experiencing by some already invested company. So, for example, regarding the policy and regulatory complexity, so because the Chinese always want to update the tax and also some other policy in order to make it better for the investor and for the local market to operate. So we do have some frequent updates in taxation, like we have tax rate, we have more updated incentive, etc. So we have also some environmental standard to update in order to meet the global standards. So it is coming a higher compliance cost for for manufacturer, for them to understand the position, the law, and the requirement for them to do the business in China. So we also have some forex control here. So let's say when we meeting back, say the profit into remitting back to your country, then will be some procedures to go through before the remittance. Like we will have to submit the supporting for that you already pay the tax, and then you have certain procedures to go through before you sending back money to your country. So to make sure that you're aware of this in order to in compliance with the relevant regulation. So another perspective is that because China is big, so there are different policy and regulation that apply to different location. So for example, for the southern area, then the policy and maybe more related to high-end and manufacturing. So the incentive will more focus on this part. And for the western part, because the natural resources will be rich in that area, and the key focus will be on maybe it's on the resources-based industry. So it's a different policy across China. So although we have some key points and some challenges, there's always support from the government and from the local professional bodies. So, for example, we have some association helping company to understand the law and some policy, and they also facilitate some dialogue between a company and also between the company with the government. And also there's some professional firms, for example, the tax firm and also the accounting firm. There's a help on company understanding the relevant law and also on the compliance and other, for example, HR matters. In addition, for the law firm, they're also helping company to taking care of the law dispute, the disputes, and any litigation or just a general legal advice. So all helping company to support the company to do business and in compliance with the law and regulations. So let's have a look on the overall tax system in China. So basically, we have a corporate income tax with a standard tax rate of 25%, but with a certain lower tax rate applied to some high-tech enterprises, and also for some small and low-profit enterprises, their corporate income tax rate will be as low as 5%. So we have value-added tax. So standard rate is 13%. It will be applied to most of the manufacturing company, and with 9% and 6% applied to certain services. And regarding the individual income tax, it's a progressive tax rate of 3% to 45%. It depends on, it's also, so it depends on how much income you earn as a progressive rate. So you have different kinds of deduction. We have statutory deduction, we have children education deduction, continuing education deduction, and some housing rent deduction, etc. So for other tax, we have custom duty, profit tax, stamp duty, etc. So we also have some incentive. So for example, we have some VAT reduction for energy saving and environmental protection equipment manufacturers. So as mentioned, we have corporate income tax reduced to 15% for some high-tech company. And also we have 100% super deduction for some eligible R&D expenses. Also, we have some policy regarding reinvestment. So when you reinvest your money from your profit distribution, you may eligible for 10% tax credit on the corporate income tax. So overall, on the capital market of China, we have two main boards, mainly on the Shanghai and Shenzhen main board. So we have recently introduced it also star markets. So it's a focus on some innovative and tech-driven companies, also allowing some pre-profit listing application. So we have also have newly Beijing Stock Exchange. So it's more target for some SME. They with specialized in innovative firms. It's a lower threshold for them to apply Beijing Stock Exchange when they're going to go public. Yeah. So I will jump into the second part regarding entering the Chinese market. So first of all, we have a look on the country plan and the indication and the focus. So recently, we have also have a largest fair for surface trade. So it's more and more that kind of fair in China recently. So it's a showcase that to the world that is promote more international cooperation, and also the company the China is also have set up some free trade zone and also some opening more sector for overseas investment. So also the China is also reducing the negative investment list, so making more investment will be eligible for overseas investor. So it's more openness to providing more opportunities for the overseas company to invest in China. Also, the China is also rapidly grow in digital, green, and knowledgeable intensive services. Yeah, it's another kind of opportunities, and also to helping the enterprises or the company to improve the efficiency and also to do the business in a green perspective. Yeah, there's some reminder or some point that as doing business in China. So with the recently updated company law, it is a 5-year contribution requirement regarding the registered capital, because previously it is like authorized capital, but you can invest upon your view. But at this moment, and with the updated company law, you have to contribute the capital contribution within 5 years. And also after the company set up within 30 days, you have to make registration regarding your tax, custom, foreign exchange, and social security and housing fund authority. And also for the overseas investor to consider which type of company will be the best. So they have to consider whether they would have a 100% ownership or through a joint venture. So because joint venture, you can leverage some of the Chinese partner resources. So, but for the WOFE, and then you will have more control on the investment. But you maybe it is more difficult from the startup, because you have less resources and less understanding of the Chinese market. So you have to make a balance to consider which one is the most beneficial to to the company to invest. So a quick look on Baker Tilly about China. So we have all across China have 26 offices. As you can see, we're covering also in Beijing and Shanghai, Shenzhen. So we rank number 7 in China with over 6,000 professionals all across China. So we provide a lot of services, which will be helpful for the company for the compliance. We have an audit assurance consultancy, merger acquisition, tax service business valuation, and some finance services. So I think more specifically for startup company, it's more important. Some service may be more important for the company. For example, to helping the company set up accounting system, to helping them to communicate with the tax bureau, helping registration on the social security accounts and opening bank accounts, and some other secretary services may be helpful for the company startup. And also for the daily operation, I think some of the services will be also helping when small or medium-sized company, for them better to do the compliance for some like bookkeeping and also tax filing, payment, and also tax return, some VAT tax return, corporate tax return, and some payroll services. I think some of them will be helpful for the company and doing business in China. So just a bit of conclusion. So China is continue to enhance the openness and to optimize its business environment to provide a better environment for overseas investors to invest into China. So we have, as mentioned, we have a good advanced manufacturing and high tech priority sectors. So it is helping the company to do business with more efficiency. And also we have as a company policy and trend, it's more opportunity and also minimizing the threshold and also the limitation for overseas investment. So it's more openness. And for the China's stable political landscape and the safe society. So all across and with the different setup, so it's good for overseas investors to consider China as an investment destination and your next destination of investment. So I think it's pretty much of this presentation. So let's see if you have any questions.
Thank you, Eric. That was excellent. That was incredibly informative and gave us a very clear picture on the benefits and the opportunities doing business in China. Just from a quick sort of questions perspective, you know, we've asked everyone this along the way, but for foreigners coming to China to help set up a new business or to set up a plant or a manufacturing facility, is it difficult for them to get visas? Are they allowed to stay for an extended period of time?
Yeah, I think is with the China policy is nowadays more easier for foreign investor to invest visa and also the work permit for them to do their business in China. So I think it's more easier than the past year because over the development in China policy regarding their openness to the world. Yeah.
And outside of the major cities you mentioned, if Canadians were coming to invest Is English spoken consistently or significantly outside of the major markets, or would they be valuable to have? That's a good reason to have the local employees to help bridge the language gap.
Yeah, I think yeah, honestly, in China, um, I think most of the people speak Chinese, and with the education background going up, and some of them will have better background to speak English. So, but I think this for the basics English, they should be okay, and and in addition that I see some of the company they will have um because they can have a translator, and also they will also with the education background growing up, that some of the graduate they have they hire, they can already to handle this situation. So I think the language barrier is less is less a problem than in the past.
That's fantastic. Really appreciate your time today, Eric. Really appreciate your contribution in Baker Tilly, China, coming to the table with this excellent presentation. If there are any other questions from our our members, we'll make sure we send them along and they can contact you and really explore what it is to do business in the biggest country in the world.
Okay, thank you, Son. Thank you, your team.
Take care.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Darla, I'll
Oh,
let you sign it off.
that was fantastic. All the, gosh, easy. I don't know, as I sat back and just listened to everything, how similar we are to many other countries out there and how we do business and how we see it. And it was really comforting to know, we're not kind of in this alone, this bit of economic shakeup that's happening, and to know that other countries, they are focusing on very similar things we are as well in Canada, and that the synergies that could be there to be able to support both of our industries. Really appreciate you putting it together and having it timed and taped and got the team. Really appreciate the effort Baker Tilly has put on behalf of the association. So that's all I've got to say. I'm kind of thrown back by all of the information, taking lots of notes, and yeah, I got to sit and digest it all. But thank you. What a fantastic session. And I look forward to next week. For those who may be joining us, we've got next week. On Monday, we'll be taking a look at how to do business in Europe, some of our friendliest friends. And yeah, I hope you can join us.
Yeah, I'm
Sean, I don't know if
excited.
you have any comments.
Excited to talk about the key markets, the UK, Ireland, and the Netherlands. Those are key ports, they're key connections into continental Europe. They're great countries. Again, the consistency between how we do business and how they do business, it's just a matter of opening the door and all the opportunities come through. So appreciate everyone joining today. Darla, as always, thank you for organizing this and working alongside us. And we'll see you next week.
Sounds good.